and welcome to our program Where God Weeps, a program where we talk about the situation of the suffering and persecuted church around the world. Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world, with a population of 250 million people, the vast majority Sunni Muslims. Increasing tension has developed in recent years between some hardliner Muslims and other religious minorities. The Catholic Church has had a prominent role in its history since the arrival of missionaries during the Portuguese colonial period. And to know more about the challenges that the Church faces in this vast country, it is my honor to welcome His Excellency Bishop Paulinus Jan Olla, Bishop of Tanjung, Selor in Indonesia. Your Excellency, welcome to our program.
Thank you.
Your Excellency, you come from a very large, very extended country. How many islands in Indonesia?
Usually the official number is about 1,700,000. That's from the government, yeah.
And you come from?
From Timor.
From Timor.
Yeah, it is in the east part of Indonesia.
But now you're living on the other side.
Yes.
And you are in the island of Borneo.
Borneo or Kalimantan, they say in Indonesia, Kalimantan, yeah.
And describe us that diocese where you are working now.
Actually, it is the youngest diocese in Indonesia because it has been founded only on 2002. The first bishop was ordained on 2002. So I am the second bishop. Now the former bishop is transferred to the Archdiocese of Samarinda. So.
And then you were appointed as bishop. Was it a surprise, or was something that you were expecting to happen?
No, it was very surprising because I just returned from Rome. I worked for 12 years in our general house as member of the general government, and then I started to be a professor in the Faculty of Philosophy and Theology in Malang, in the island of Java. So I never expected to be elected as bishop.
So it's God's mysterious ways.
Yeah.
Your Excellency, we have prepared a short feature report about Indonesia that we're going to share with our audience now. Okay. So here is a country profile of Indonesia.
Over 17,000 islands lying on a volcanic ring of fire stretching over 5,000 kilometers. A country of 250 million people that speak over 700 dialects. The most populous Muslim country in the world that, however, is not an Islamic state. Indonesia. Located in Southeast Asia, between the waters of the Indian Ocean and the Pacific, Indonesia has been inhabited since the times of Homo erectus, known as Java man, who lived on these islands 1.5 million years ago. In the first centuries of the modern era, Indonesians maintained close links with Indians, so that with time they adopted their culture and religion, Hinduism as well as Buddhism, evidence of which can be found in the splendid Javan temples of Prambanan and Borobudur that survive to the present. In the 13th century, Arab traders brought Islam to these islands and, with time, gained an increasing number of followers. The search for cloves and sandalwood saw the arrival of the Portuguese on the archipelago in the 16th century, followed by Spaniards and the Dutch. The Dutch East India Company subjugated most of the countries of Java and controlled Indonesia's trade, in due course annexing the country as a Dutch colony. Dutch rule lasted from 1605 right up to the Japanese occupation in 1942. An independent Republic of Indonesia was proclaimed in 1945 by Sukarno, the country's first president and the nation's founder. In 1965, General Suharto took control after a mysterious coup d'etat. The transitory period was a dark time of ethnic cleansing, directed particularly against the Chinese minority and the country's intelligentsia, charged with maintaining contacts with communism. The many years of Suharto's authoritative rule, though characterized by economic prosperity as well as oppressive policies directed at ethnic and religious minorities, ended in 1998 with the Asiatic economic crisis and student protests. And so began the Reformasi period, characterized by a gradual return to democracy. Of 200 million Indonesians, approximately 87% are Muslim, mainly Sunni. There are numerous other groups, a few with a vociferous fundamentalist bent, though a tolerant Islam based on Javan traditions dominates. A saying that has become widespread claims that Indonesia presents Islam's smiling face. Though the world's biggest Muslim country, Indonesia has not become an Islamic state. It remains an experiment of peaceful coexistence of various religions, reflected in the country's motto, unity in diversity. This is not, however, a laic country. Faith in God, reflected in the country's 6 official religions, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, Catholicism and Protestantism, is reflected in the nation's constitution. The country is based on Pancasila, 5 principles formulated by President Sukarno: the already mentioned belief in God, a just and civilized humanity, national unity, democracy and social justice. Christians from various denominations make up about 12% of Indonesia's population. 3%, 7 million Indonesians, admit to being Catholic. The circumstances of Christians, however, vary considerably from region to region. The island of Flores is practically uniquely inhabited by Catholics, whilst Sharia law applies in the special autonomous district of Aceh. In spite of instances of discrimination, the number of Christians in Indonesia continues to grow, especially in the bigger cities, which is linked to migration as well as a tolerance towards conversions.
Kebudayaannya sangat terbuka, sangat toleran.
Here, the culture is very open and tolerant, so that the Catholic Church in Yogyakarta and Semarang Archdiocese in general has been flourishing in many ways.
Subur dalam arti banyak hal. Namun, nyatanya dalam banyak tempat,
But in fact, in many places, there are major difficulties. For example, some efforts to ask for permission to build churches within this Jakarta Archdiocese, in this mega city, I take the worst case, have to wait 24 years, or 10 to 15 years on average, with varying difficulty. There is even a case in which the government had given permission, but communities reject it.
Masyarakat menolak.
Kita sebagai umat Islam jangan lemah sama orang-orang Nasrani, takbir!
problems with obtaining church building permits apply especially to Western Java. In most cases, these do not arise because of the opposition of Muslim neighbors, but rather as a result of often hostile protests organized by radical groups, but above all because of a prolific number of formal obstacles put up by local authorities. The deteriorating state of religious freedom was underlined in a report by Human Rights Watch published in 2013 that sharply criticized previous President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono for idleness in the face of increasingly radical cases of human rights abuses, describing him as co-responsible for the persecution of religious minorities. Considerable hope of change comes with the election of young President Joko Widodo, who won mass sympathy from Indonesians. The influence of radical Muslims arriving from Arab countries raises questions about the likelihood of Indonesia becoming another Iraq or Pakistan. Will it remain an example of democracy and peaceful, tolerant coexistence? The Indonesian model encourages hope.
Welcome back to our program. Today we are talking with Bishop Paulinus Jan Olla from Indonesia. It's very interesting to hear this reality of the largest Muslim country in the world, meaning it's the country with more people under Muslim faith. What does that mean for your pastoral work, for your work as a bishop, as a pastor before? Is it difficult? Is it a challenge?
Yeah, it is a challenge for us as a leader, as pastors, and the challenge is about how to understand better other religions, and in this case, the Muslims. And we have a good preparation from our formation, because in the Faculty of Philosophy and Theology, we learned about Muslims, so we have a particular subject about Muslim and all the essential belief that they have. And that is very important for us, for our pastoral work, how to deal and to have a dialogue with the Muslims and their leaders.
And it's very important, the principle that you have as a country of unity in diversity.
Yeah.
And this is precisely to promote this kind of knowledge of the other, of this dialogue between religions, between tribes. Why is it so important? Have you had before some conflict about these divisions?
No, it is not a question about conflicts, because that was the basis for the existence of Indonesia, because since the independence of Indonesia in 1945, we have to find a common way or the principles to live together. And you know, Indonesia is very multicultural in the ethnicity or also in religions, and there are many multicultural, and we have so large also the difference between us. So the first president and the founding fathers defined this way to unite all the Indonesia after the independence. So it is not because of the conflicts, but the basis to live together in harmony.
Because there is such diversity of
Yes.
groups, of languages, of ethnic
etc.
groups and all that it was important to have this as the solid rock, as the main principle. Now, you have also, we were watching in this video, the Pancasila, and this we could say columns of Indonesian society.
Yeah.
And the first one is really interesting, Monsignor, because it's about God.
Yeah.
You are not a theocracy as such. You know,
Yeah.
you're not governed by,
Yeah.
some religious institution.
Yes.
Nevertheless, to put God as one of the pillars of society is quite relevant.
Yeah.
How does this reflect as a benefit or as an advantage for your work?
Yeah, first of all, the idea about God as one of the principles of the 5 principles. Panchasila, it means 5 principles. So the idea comes, it's like the first one we have been talking about the unity in diversity. So the founding fathers, they found that belief in God is fundamental for Indonesians. So that is why they formulate the first pillar is believing in God, and that is very important. Until now, the same thing you can realize in Indonesia when you speak about everything, they will join the argument with the question of God. For example, we have just finished the Asian Games. People always ask what religion he has. So it is not a question of discrimination or something like that, but people always talking about God in their everyday life.
So it's an acknowledgement of a reality of human beings.
Yes, the reality of the Indonesian.
Probably it is because for Western countries, it is a little striking to see, God in such a solid concept, which is very good.
No, in Indonesia, they always speak about religion in their daily life.
Now, do you have any particular limitations as a Catholic church in the country in terms of moving around, or how many missionaries you can have in the country, or any kind of limitations, or the church is free to work in any way and everywhere?
Limitations, no, because after 1970, there was a rule from the government that all the missionaries, they have to choose between Indonesia or leave the country. But now in Indonesia, we don't have any more missionaries outside from outside Indonesia. So it is okay about the proclamation of the gospel. It's not prohibited in Indonesia. Only maybe the question about some particular groups who usually refuse to have a church. For example, building a church, you have to get permission from the local people over there. So sometimes it make difficulty for us.
So it's more the community rather than the government itself who makes it difficult.
Yes.
Now, Monsignor, you belong to the congregation of the Holy Family. What is the work that you do with families? What are your priorities working with with Catholic families in Indonesia?
Yes. In Indonesia, we have center for the families, and also the training of trainers for the family. So we think that that's our charism of the congregation. So we contribute to the local churches. So we don't have a particular group belong to the congregation, but we help the local churches if they want to have pastoral for the family. So the Holy Family Fathers will ready to help the diocese. So in Indonesia, for example, we have 37 dioceses. It's 16 or 17 dioceses helped by the fathers of the missionary of the Holy Family.
It is very common to find migrants from Indonesia, particularly in the countries of the Gulf, in the Emirates, in Qatar, in all these places. What is the impact in the family when one of the parents has to leave the family? Can you see that
Yeah.
that as a crisis for some families?
Yeah, we need help for that because, for example, in my diocese, there is the border between Indonesia and Malaysia. So we have many migrants from the other parts of Indonesia, the eastern part of Indonesia, Flores, Timor, etc. They come there and sometimes they have not documents with them. So the human trafficking also the problem in the border between Indonesia and Malaysia. So people can go there and they got many problems.
And that happens particularly in your island, because your island is divided between Indonesia, Malaysia, and Brunei.
Brunei, yes. So that's a real problem for us, the migration and the impact.
Is the church involved somehow, Monsignor?
Yes, we have pastoral.
What kind of work do you do?
Usually we help them if they don't have document. So the church help them to find or about the marriage. So, for example, the Malaysian government doesn't acknowledge the marriage of the Catholics in the part of Malaysia. So they come to the border, and we have a parish there only for the migrants. So we help them to to make the regulation of their marriage, also to help them to have the acknowledgement of the civil society, the government. Yeah.
And what other services, if we may say social services, the church provides, particularly in the island of Borneo?
Yeah, usually we help them with we have the clinic or the hospital to help
health
some
services
of them,
for the community.
Health services, yeah.
And of course they are available for everybody. They are not
Yeah.
exclusively for Catholic or Christians.
No, for all the migrants over there, yeah.
And what about education?
Education is hard also for my diocese because it is the youngest diocese in Indonesia, and some kind of culture is becoming an obstacle for the young people to go to school. They have no motivation to go to school.
They don't have motivation?
Yeah.
Why is that?
It means that, for example, the young marriage is very high over there. After the secondary school, some of the young
What
guys,
age are we talking about?
12, 15 years old,
Wow,
they get
that
married.
is young indeed.
So that's why the diocese try to have to help them to study. So the scholarship is important for us, but we don't have many benefactors or something like that to help us to send these young people to go to school.
And now, what does this happen? Is it something cultural, or there is some particular benefit of marrying so young?
Cultural, it is cultural, because this a kind of because Indonesia have a particular law that people can go to school from the elementary school to the high school, but these people, they don't want to go to school. So we help them to give them motivation, and we send them outside Borneo to Java, for example, and then there they can experience another kind of education, and they started to know what important is the education.
Of course. Well, one of the many challenges that you're facing as bishop of this area. What would you say are the main challenges in your diocese? You were appointed in 2018, so you haven't been the bishop for that long, but I'm pretty sure that by now you know which one are going to be your priorities.
Yeah, the first one is what we have talking about the migrants over there, the formation, the education, and the most important is the presence of the Catholic Church in that area. We don't have universities, we have only the elementary school and the high school, but we are trying to live there and the formation for the next generation. I hope that their parents, most of them, they work in the palm oil and the mining coal. But I think in the next generation of Catholics there, they have to have a better education, and I hope the Catholics will have a good future over there.
And how are you planning to finance these rather ambitious projects? They're very costly.
Yeah.
What kind of resources would you have?
We don't have the resources there, but there are people from Jakarta, for example, they organize to come to visit the diocese, and they say, we can give scholarship for these young people, this guy or that guy, and so we organize them to have this kind of
so Christians from another islands come
from another island, from another diocese. They help us to have to realize some project we have. Yeah.
So then, my final question would be: how can we help? How can we help your diocese in Borneo, Indonesia?
Yeah, you can come there, and we will see together what kind of help you can have. You can help us over there, because there are so many things. The human resources is we have talked about it, and other things there. Yeah, in the parishes and the churches over there.
And to finish our conversation, Your Excellency, what is your episcopal motto?
My episcopal motto is Servus Veritatis, the servant of the truth.
Of truth.
So, just Jesus Christ is the truth, and I just follow Him to see what is the truth to do in my diocese.
And what a great opportunity to do it in such a country where faith and the truth is so important.
Yes.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you. You're right.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us in another program of Where God Weeps. If you want to know more about the work that the Church is doing in Indonesia, we encourage you to contact the information at the end of this program. Thank you, and God bless.